Started off as a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and now...
That's right. We are live.
The ghost faced himself, Brandon Tanev.
This isn't like the start of last season when it was just, it looked like the Canucks were just a beer league team not playing defense at all. And just before Chris goes, no, I'm kidding, Chris, you can actually go now.
No, hold on.
Oh, we had to give more time for coming on late. So.
I still hold on. All right. Chris, go, and then I got something else to say at the end.
So, an elf and a midget in 2 back-to-back games. He's definitely on a friendship tour for sure.
Oh, yeah, I'm okay with him being, the 6'7" defenseman. No! He is a AHL defenseman right now.
Look, Shonky, don't mind Devin, okay? We all struggle with Devin, so you know.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast. We are live at Facebook.com, Shifts and Pucks, Twitter.com. We're also live on that as well. Watch us on Twitter, YouTube.com, Shifts and Pucks, Twitch.com, Shifts and Pucks. Subscribe to wherever you get your audio as well, as we are live after the Vancouver Canucks lost to the New Jersey Devils 7-2. We'll get into that. We'll get into the week that was since last we've been together. We'll talk about the Abbotsford Canucks. We're going to talk about a viewing of a public viewing of Connor Bedard as well. First, we say hello, Sean. How are you doing?
I'm good, Kevin. It's been a week, hasn't it? It's been kind of crazy. Like, honestly, even since Wednesday when we had Flames talk, it's been a week. Like, you've had a couple like absolutely ridiculous Canucks games, and now a ridiculous one in the opposite way. And let alone everything else that's going on in the world. It has. I'll retract my statement. It's been a month. It's been a month since we last talked on Wednesday.
I agree with that. The amount of stuff that has occurred since last, I was only with you guys on Monday, but even since last Wednesday, so much stuff has happened inside the hockey world and out. Yeah,
and before we go anywhere, I think we'll dig into this a little bit later on as well. But as much as we're going to argue today about the performance of Yaroslav Halak in net, as much as we're going to argue about what the Canucks are going to do in the future, it pales in comparison to what's going on in Ukraine right now. It hit me. I'm actually of Ukrainian heritage. I don't speak a word of it, but I eat a good petahe. And it's been a tough week to watch all of that. So our thoughts with that as well. But we understand that hockey is probably on the pale of all things, probably a little bit lower on, but it's still good to get it out. And it's good for us to have this conversation and provide a bit of different perspective. We'll get into some of what hockey has done a little bit later on with everything as well. And that will be an interesting discussion. But first, let's get into the game here, as the New Jersey Devils had a grand total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players tonight with 2 points, 7 different goal scorers, and the New Jersey Devils knocked off the Vancouver Canucks 7-2. They had a 3-0 lead after the first period. The Canucks tried to chip back. The Jersey scored 2 more quick goals. Yaroslav Halak looked to the bench and said, "Get me the hell out of here." And eventually they did. But that was that. And Halak is taking a lot of heat. So maybe we'll start there.
Just a quick aside, though. Hi, Kevin. I'm Chris.
Oh, you acknowledged. Hi, Chris. No, wait. I thought you kind of chimed in, so I was just like, okay, well, we'll. Hi, Chris. How are you?
I'm good. The only reason why I was being a jackass like that is because I had a planned bit for my response, and I couldn't do my response if you don't say hi to me.
Hi, Chris. How are you? Do your bit.
I'm doing well. I'm doing better. I've been on a really strong water diet the past 36 hours because the previous 4 days I consumed a lot of beer in BC.
Ah, yes. We do have some good beer out here.
That you do.
Yes.
Definitely give my liver a good workout.
Well, that's what we're here to do. Yes. Anyway.
But yes, back to the game.
Maybe we'll start here. Should Halak have started tonight? And the reason I ask is Bruce Boudreau in his media conference after said he didn't get this whole back-to-back tired thing. They started Halak, obviously assuming that they needed to give Demko some sort of rest. Should they have started Halak tonight?
I say no, but not for the reasons that you brought up. Because I hate the fact that we're going to have to pay that bonus next season now.
Well, eventually he would have had to have. He would have played a game.
I know
that would have happened anyway. It wouldn't have mattered if it was tonight. He was going to play a game on this road trip.
I'm just pessimistic about the contract. That's all.
It wouldn't have been necessarily on this road trip, but he would have played.
Yeah,
he would have played that. He would have started that 10th. He would have had that 10th start to get that bonus, and it's just something they have to deal with. And that's why Rutherford. One of the big things Rutherford and Alvin are looking for is cap space, so they don't have to carry it into next season. Because guess what? They don't have Luongo's cap recapture next season.
But guess what we do have next season? Holtby's buyout.
Yeah, so you kind of want to find a way to create as much cap space going into next season as possible. We've talked about it a bunch of times here. Like, no matter what happens this season and how well this team plays, and if they play themselves into a playoff position, great. But the focus for this management team should be next season and onwards. If you find a way to extend Tyler Mott at a decent rate for the next 2 years, fantastic. But going forwards and going into the offseason specifically, all the moves you have to make are about making sure that this team is better going into next season than they are now. So, sure. I said, going back to the question though, it's a tough one. There was no travel involved in this back-to-back. And Demko's playing it lights out. I think they should have played Demko, honestly. I think this is a perfect back-to-back to play your starter. Like I said, there's no travel. And Halak struggled. He's been not great of late. And maybe he's still struggling with whatever. Having that break from because of the COVID issue, I think really hurt him. Whether he has post-COVID issues or it's just the break in the rhythm really screwed him up. But the other thing is, at some point you're going to have to play your backup. I think I saw someone posted on Twitter about why they can't play all 82 games like skaters can. They're playing all 60 minutes or 58 and change or whatever for the most part. If you go look at the time on ice as the metric instead of games played, despite goaltenders not playing 3/4 of the games, they're still out. They still have more time on ice than players do, than the skaters do. So you have to find a way to play your backup, to give your starter a rest, but you have to be able to rely on them and not feel like they're going to be just basically what Halak was tonight, which was you couldn't rely on him. And it deflated the Canucks because they came out and they were playing okay to start the game, but it went downhill from after. Like if you look at Natural Stat Trick and their game flow graph, like they were even, if not controlling the play for the most part, and then as soon as they got those two quick goals at the end of the first period, it was Devils for the next 25 minutes, and yeah, it just wasn't good enough. And you need your backup to be able to go in and stem the tide and be able to find a way to just to give your team a chance to win. And Halak didn't do that tonight.
Well, well, a couple of things here. I do want to, we normally, it's, I mean, it's easy to point and poke at the Canucks, and we'll spend a good chunk of time doing that. But the one thing I will say is those Devil forwards have a lot of skill. There's a lot of skill on that team. Jack Hughes, I mean, that's a pretty obvious one to point out, but he's got a heck of a deceptive shot and a lot of skill. Dawson Mercer, we've talked about before. Igor Sigorovich, skilled. Nico Hischier coming along rather nicely. There's a lot of skill there. They probably need a lot of help on their back end. I mean, I think they're using their number 6 goaltender this year because Blackwood's injured. John Gillies is injured. I mean, I think they tried to call Chico Resch if he could play, and he wasn't available. He said, "I'm retired at 92. I can't do it." Okay, so that. But that being said, with Halak, these are his games the games played the last 4 seasons before he came to the Canucks. 2017-18, 54 with the Islanders. 2018-19, 40 with the Bruins. 2019-20, 31 with the Bruins. 2021, 19 of 54. 21-22 here, we have him on Hockey DB at 12. I just think that part of the problem with Halak is rhythm. Demko has played a lot. I believe, he had the COVID issue that brought Spencer Martin up for the time there a little bit ago. I want to say that was about a month ago or so ago, or a year ago, whatever your timeline is. It seems like it was, but he hasn't played a lot. And I understand from the coach's perspective, if he's not playing well or not feeling it, why you don't want to play him. But he seems to be a guy, I'm not super familiar with what Halak's goaltending rhythm is, but he seems to be a guy that's used to playing a lot more. And he's probably in part out of rhythm and in part out of confidence. I mean, according to Bachelor, his last 3 starts save percentage is Lotto 649, which would be great for baseball, but it's not, and good for some of my marks in school, but that's not good goaltending stats.
Yeah, I think you have a point there, Kev. But he's also been a 1B or a backup for the last 3-4 years. He's got to find a way. That's your job as a backup, regardless of how many games you play. You need to find a way to spell off the starter when needed. And if you're not doing it, you're not doing your job. It's flat out that simple. And I get it. You can get into those details and all that, but honestly, right now, it's flat out not good enough. And if the Canucks are going to surprise people and make them go gasping on and get all shocked, they have to have these games. They have to be in these games. They cannot be blown out.
I agree with you that his play of late hasn't been good, but I guess in Halak's defense, the first, let's say 5 of his starts, he was playing quite well, maybe even up to 7 or 8 starts, but he was playing quite well, and it was just he couldn't get the run support. The Canucks just weren't scoring back then at the rate they needed to in front of him for him to get wins. But the last couple of starts for him have definitely been stinkers for sure.
Well, let's not just put this on Halak. The defense wasn't awesome today. The defensive coverage wasn't awesome today. I mean, that Dawson Mercer goal was a good example. That's a one-timer. You got to defend. You got to be able to defend that as well. I mean, Halak had Bratt, and Bratt had all day, and then he sets it up to Mercer. Someone's got to cover him there. Then you had the Luke Shen tip in. That's just bad luck. The defense today for the Canucks overall, and I'm not just going to point at the 6 that play defense, the defensive structure of the Canucks, that was not good enough. I don't know if anyone's going to disagree with me.
It wasn't. No, it wasn't. But that's, and I got into this a little bit before we even went live. They're fighting through some They were such a passive zone defense team under Travis Green, and now they're trying to be a little more aggressive. And when they're on, it works, but when they're not, it's a train wreck, and they're all over the place, and it's just not. And there was a couple goals there that just happened to be. Yeah, because of that, they were all over the place, and Devils players were able to get open because of it and have tap-ins.
Yeah,
and yeah, it's just this is a long-term approach here, and I said, like, if they can find a way to get in the rhythm and find a way to stay on a bit of a roll here, and they get in the playoffs, whatever. It happens and be great and be fun to watch. But it's all about how do you make this team better from now until the start of next season and going into next season and beyond. That should be the focus of this management team. And I know that's the focus of this management team.
I have to admit, though, the past couple of games have felt like a little bit of whiplash just because, like, we either win by 7-1 or we lose by 7-2. Or what was the game against Anaheim? We lost like 7-3 or 7-4 or something like that. So, when was the last time we had like a close 2-1 game? I don't remember.
Yeah, it's been a while for sure. Actually, it was probably the San Jose game where where the San Jose tied it with 0.0 seconds, and then the Canucks won in overtime. That's the last
close game. Yeah,
that was the last close game. And I think even in the Calgary, like, to me, the Rangers game, they had that little minor slip up at the end. When you're up by a bit, that happens. But I thought in the Rangers game, that was a pretty strong, detail-oriented game. But even the Calgary game, there was there was at least, I remember 4 breakaways in that game. 2 of them were shorthanded. And then Demko makes the save without the stick off of Rasmus Andersson. If he doesn't make those stops, that's an entirely different game. So, and I think that this team has been relying so much on and sort of has this trust with Demko that he is going to make the big save, and he will make the big save. I don't think anyone here is disagreeing with that, but they've got to tighten up. They simply have got to tighten up defensively. They have to find a way to do that. And I don't know if I'm not blaming the coach. I'm not necessarily blaming the players' structure. I think there's a lot of things that go into it, but it's a lot of run and gun hockey, and that's why we're seeing some lopsided scores.
But right now, that's what they have to do to win games. This is kind of what this is what I was expecting going into this season with that defense core and this forward group. I was expecting Jekyll and Hyde run and gun offensive games. When they're feeling it, they're going to score a lot. When they're not, they're not. And they're going to give up a lot. But at least they're playing to their strengths, which is offensive hockey right now, as opposed to trying to trying to make them into something that they weren't, which was a defensive. They were trying to be too passive defensive, and it just wasn't working either. I'd rather watch this than watch what the team under Travis Green.
Fair, but the only reason I feel conflicted about liking that style, the run and gun style, isn't this what we made fun of the Oilers for doing the past couple seasons?
Did not someone in our chat message say this is what it's like to be an Oilers fan?
I mean, when you have goaltending that can back it up and save you, it's not. But when you don't have it, man, that just sucks. Like, honestly. Like, if you have the goaltend, you can do it. The Canucks have, for the most part, under Bruce Boudreau. Although they've have had some low-scoring games too. But now it's just, if your goalie's not on, that's the problem with it. There, Chris, you nailed it bang on. If your goaltending is not on, it's going to be a rough night.
Yep.
Yeah, and it was rough. for the Canucks tonight. But I mean, the season isn't over. I mean, depending on it's depending on where you're at here. They're not far out of the playoffs. I think the thing that I think is also happening here is with these scores. I mean, Thursday and then yesterday, you see Twitter is all like, "Wow, this team is so great." Okay, now no, okay, forget this JT Miller trade. We want a first round pick for Tyler Mott and your top prospect. Damn it! And then today it's all like, "Oh, you got to sell everything." Right, so it's kind of Jekyll and Hyde on Canucks Twitter too.
Well, I think I'll go into what I brought up, and I was listening to Halford and Bruff in the morning, and it's like cheering the team versus cheering the process, and there's pros and cons to both sides, and I think it's a very interesting discussion to have. I think because there's a lot of people who would want to just at this point in the season, and honestly, this drives me nuts. If you're watching a game, you should be cheering for the team to win. Yes, you want long-term success, and you want them to make the management to make the right decisions. And good management will not be swayed by a short-term success, and they will know that and they should know. And I have confidence in Alvin and Castengay and Cami Granado and Rutherford and Derek Clancy to know that they need to be looking more long-term than short-term here. And I still am adamant that there's nothing wrong with riding this out. There's only one player you have to make a decision on that is kind of you'd be able to move for significant assets here. And that's Tyler Mott. And when I say significant assets, I think you're looking at a third and a prospect or a second round pick type deal. I still think you could get a second round pick for Tyler Mott. I said it like 3-4 weeks ago, and nothing since then has made me change my mind. He's a heart and soul player. He's a player that you want to have on your team if you're going into the playoffs with aspirations going deep into them.
So, Sean, earlier you were talking about like an option on potentially keeping Mott. Would you potentially give him more term if he was willing to take a more cap-friendly, like team-friendly cap hit?
Like how much more term are we talking about here?
Like for a guy like him, I probably wouldn't see anything more than 4, but like, would you give him 4?
Oh, what's that cap hit going to be? Like,
like, I'm not sure if I'm like willing to throw out a number. It was just more of like if it was considered team friendly, but he wanted more term. Is that something that
he's making 1.225 right now? If you can get him under $2 million for 3 years, you sign him. And as quickly as possible. Honestly, I don't know if he'd sign that, but if there's any way you can sign him for 3 to even 4 years, 3 to 4 years under $2 million, you're laughing.
But on the open market, he's likely getting 2.5.
Likely, yeah. Like he's probably eyeing that Jason Dickinson deal. Honestly, 2.65 for 3.
And that's not unreasonable if you want to, like, I hate to use this word, but if you want to go the selfish route, like, yeah, that's probably what he could get on the open market for sure.
But what are you qualifying Lammikko and Highmore at? Just out of curiosity.
At their qualifying offers.
Are you considering any of it giving them a raise?
Well, you're qualifying them at their qualifying offers.
Okay. Oh, no, but okay. Let me re-ask the question. Are you considering giving them more money?
I mean, if you can, honestly, both of them would sign them to two-year deals at what Mott's making, 1.225. If you can sign two-year deals at around $1 million, maybe a bit above, like Mott.
Are they both below $1 million right now?
They're both 750 and 725.
Okay.
They've got they've got arbitration rights on as RFAs.
Yeah, so give them a healthy raise. Reward
with and with the run they're on, our rights mean a lot for them. So
yeah, give them a pat on the back, give them a raise, but don't do anything stupid. And with our current management, like Sean said, with our current management in place, I don't think they're going to.
And I think that's part of the going in got back where I talked about like cheering the team versus cheering the process. Then there's a lot of people who have got a little bit scars from the Jim Benning era, where they made big trades and were buying more than they didn't sell. And I think that's kind of where a lot of people are. Like they kind of just want to see some picks and prospects coming into the into the fold here, because like the Canucks don't have a second round pick this upcoming draft. They've got Winnipeg's third. They don't even have their own third. So they don't they're still down. They still don't only have 6 picks in 7 rounds right now.
And our prospects are super thin right now as is. Like outside of Lockwood and Rathbone, there's not really much to talk about.
Klimovich as well. Like I know Kevin's still very much on the train of they should have drafted his boy Stank out of Kamloops, but like he's an 18-year-old playing in the AHL, and that's something that doesn't happen very often.
There's no question of his talent. Like I mean, you can dispute. We can bring up who they should have drafted. The fact is, they made the choice and whatever. I mean, he's still. He's a project, but and he could work out, right? So
yeah, there's still some other prospects in there that are a little. They're projects. You've got Aiden McDonough, who's lighting things up at Northeastern. You've got a couple of Swedish prospects that are playing decently right now, but yeah, like they don't have any like eye-popping prospects that are making us like really excited, and that's because they've traded their first round pick for the past couple drafts. Is a big part of that.
True.
And for the team where the team is at, like you can make that like granted they got for trading that first round pick, they've got OEL, Garland, and JT Miller right now. So it's such a tough, like I said, I understand it. But I still think I'm still at the point where I do not see a reason why you have to rush this and make these massive deals before the deadline. I still think the price for JT Miller will not significantly drop going from now until the between the dead. If you don't make the trade but for JT Miller by the deadline, I don't think this price significantly drops if you make the trade at the draft. More teams will have more cap flexibility to make that trade. And as I've said, when I went through what happened with the Rangers, a lot of it is making sure that prospect you get back, because the return for Miller is going to include a first round pick, right? So you have to make sure that you nail that first round pick for sure. But that's on you. You already know that's in the bag if you're trading JT Miller. It's identifying a prospect that you know is going to be an impact player and making sure you get them.
Well, actually, I have a theory about this JT Miller thing. I'll toss this in here as a theory. I don't think the offer is going to go down for JT Miller. I think it's going to go up in the offseason. And that is because I think someone, and this plays a little bit with the Flames, if someone doesn't think that they're going to get Johnny, they're probably going to want to pay a hefty price to get JT Miller.
Not only that, but in the offseason with more bidders, the auction price goes up.
And you're going to have some teams that are going to feel some pressure to go a little bit more all in. I think right now, Philly is obviously not in the JT Miller sweepstakes because they're out of it. But Philly would probably be in the JT Miller sweepstakes in the offseason. Toronto, looking right now, I mean, I think Toronto, if they don't get very far, they probably are going to offer a little bit more for JT Miller in the offseason. You wonder what this Devils team is going to do as well. You got the Rangers. It's all going to depend on playoffs and how teams respond to that. So I don't know. I actually think the offer for JT Miller would actually go up in the offseason. It won't be the same. It'll be higher.
I don't disagree with that. That makes logical sense to me.
And that's why, as I said, I think it's the key thing, and I think Rutherford and Alvin understand this. If they're as smart as we think they are, they know that you have to make sure that if you're making that trade, you're 90% of the time when you're making those type of trades, you're getting sort of those B-level prospects, and you have to play hardball to get one of them that you know is going to be good. I'll go back to our conversation with Peter Labardius, and we talked about the JT Miller trade. And I said, if I'm the Canucks, I'm asking for Pelche, I'm asking for Zeri, I'm asking for Coronado. And he said, then I'd hang up the phone. I'm like, okay, fine. Then we move on, right? Because you have go. Honestly, go look at the Mark Stone trade that Ottawa made with Vegas, and look how absolutely brutal it looks for Ottawa right now. Eric Brandstrom is not the player that they thought he'd be at all. And they got it just, you have to find a way to make sure that the prospect, like I said, you're going to get a first round pick for JT Miller. You have to find a way to make sure you get that prospect that you want. So one thing that Kevin Adams and Buffalo did really well, they made sure that they got Peyton Krebs out of Vegas. Look at how go back to the Pacioretty trade with Montreal. Look how good that trade looks now.
Right, that was the Nick Suzuki trade, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like that trade looks amazing for them. Even though that they suck this year, they've got Nick Suzuki, who is a star in this league.
A big part,
and arguably just as valuable to the team, to the Montreal Canadiens as Max Pacioretty is to the Vegas Golden Knights.
Maybe even more valuable.
Yeah, just due to his age. Yep.
And his position. He's a center.
That too, yep.
So you have to, like, Rutherford and Alvin and that management team have to find a way to play hardball here and make sure that they identify maybe a handful of prospects that they're willing to trade. They're willing to make the trade for with JT Miller, and make sure that one of them comes back.
To answer Dylan's most recent question that he put into the comments, I heard that they were sniffing around for a forward, but as far as what forward, I have no clue.
I mean, there was talk, like, Chris Faber's been pounding the drum that the Kings would be an interesting trade partner with the Canucks because they've got a bunch of right shot defensemen. Like
Good
they've
point,
got, yeah. I was like, okay, let me look it up, and they've got a handful that are decent. They've got Brant Clark, they've got Brock Faber, and they've got a couple others.
Yeah, I know the name JT Miller has come up with. I think that that's what I heard Elliot Friedman say. JT Miller's name came up with the Kings. I wouldn't be surprised if Tanner Pearson's name came up with the Kings, but I think that they're probably looking for something a little bit more dynamic, which would indicate to be Miller.
Well, they've got that one line that's Dano, Arvidsson, and
yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, but the other thing with this LA team is it's completely different than what everyone thought it would be too. It's an old team. Yeah. It's an old team. We have to stop talking about it being a young team.
They're
a little bit younger on the blue line, but a lot of the players that are leading the charge here, the Kopitars, the Danos, the Arvidssons, the Iafallos, he's 28. People just don't know him.
It's Trevor Moore is the other guy on that line, by the way.
That was part of the Muzzin trade.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then, yeah, there's some young, I don't know. There's Tobias Bornfort. I'm not entirely, I'm not, I qualify this by saying I'm no scout, but I'm not entirely sure I am a huge fan of the Kings' defensive prospects. I think they've got some interesting pieces there, but I do think right now, I mean, people have just on a side note. Sorry, we'll get back on track here yet. But I know that people are talking about the Flames being a dangerous team. I do think the Kings are going to be a dangerous team in the playoffs. But in terms of defense prospects, I don't know. I'm not. I like that forward group of prospects. Defense, I think they still need some work, and I'm not like if I am looking around and saying, okay, I want a defensive prospect. Not sure I'm in the. I think there's other places that I could get a better defensive prospect than the LA Kings.
But the thing with them is they've got a bunch of right shot guys, right?
Yeah.
Because on the NHL team, they've got Doughty, Matt Roy, who's 26. They've got Sean Dursey, who's been a bit of a revelation for them this year, and he's only 23. And then you go down. They've got Brant Clark, Hal Grans, and Jordan Spence, who are all signed to contracts, and then you've got Brock Faber as well. So I believe he's also a right shot guy.
Well, I guess the question then becomes, though, is any of them better than a Braden Schneider or a Timola from Toronto? That's the question that I would be asking.
But are the Canucks able to get them too? Because that's also the dance that you have to engage in, is that are they willing to give them up? Because that sound like everything I've heard from Toronto is Timola is kind of off the books, as was a couple others. Surprisingly, Nick Robertson isn't necessarily an untouchable there in Toronto. And I know if Braden Schneider was actually legitimately available, I honestly believe that trade would be done by now. A first, Braden Schneider, and then you add some other things. I don't understand why Alvin and Rutherford and all those and everyone else on that management team wouldn't say yes.
Yeah. It's part of the and maybe they're still debating, and maybe what they're going to. I maintain I don't think we're going to see. Will we see a trade by the trade deadline on the Canucks? Yes. Will it be a major piece? No, I don't think it will be. I think they're going to wait and ride this out.
It's going to be a form of a minor cap dump. We don't know which player.
Yeah.
I think, and I think what I think people should be excited about is that the Canucks do have some players who are going to be attracting attention if they decide to make a move. Like I say, you've got a Tyler Mott. I'd even look like if you end up signing Tyler Mott to a deal, then maybe you look at moving a Lamico or a Highmore for a little bit less and go from there, because you're going to need to find that you're going to need to find the cap space flexibility going forwards. And you have to, if you end up signing Mott to a deal, it's going to be more expensive than the 1.225 that you have him at now. You have to find, and you've got it. You need to find that flexibility elsewhere. So, but I agree with you. I'm still not sold on the fact that we will see a massive trade or a game changing, franchise changing trade during the season. I think it's going to be in the off season.
Yeah. Anything else in terms, I guess, of the other games, Flames, Rangers? Is there anything we wanted to touch on? I kind of felt like we've covered pretty much all of those games and sort of in the way that we're talking, but is there anything specific about those that we...
Well, maybe not as far as like technical breakdown of the game, but I was in Rogers Arena for that Flames game, and one hell of a game to travel to Vancouver for, I tell you. Holy shit. Like, I haven't been that elated and like euphoric at a hockey game in forever. So to just be able to like stand up and cheer every couple of minutes for yet another goal, and the fact that it was me, a fellow Canucks fan, and then our buddy that we brought, a Flames fan. So we were just like ribbing him constantly, and all props to Chad. He was a great sport. Like, yes, he got drunk to compensate for it, but he was a great sport. He took it in stride. But yeah, just a great overall experience at Rogers Arena. Those skate jerseys are awesome. I'm not going to say bring them back permanently as the home jersey, but definitely use them as the alternates instead of the heritage ones, in my honest opinion. I've never been a fan of the big, thick green stripe on the heritage jersey. So bring back the black skate as our alternate. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I look at that and it sounds like they're bringing back reverse retro for next season, the NHL. I wonder if we see a blue and green skate jersey next year.
I'm not sure I like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure I like it either.
I've seen some mock-ups that I like, though. Or do we see them try and do a black and yellow version of something else?
Or actually, what I saw rumored on Reddit was maybe some white version of the skate jersey.
I'd like to see a gold version of the jersey. I'd like to see that old V again. I would love to see that. The flying V. I actually like that jersey. For my dislike of yellow Nashville, I actually like that jersey. I think it works in certain situations.
I'd be okay with a reverse retro of like the 80s V for sure.
Yeah, no white jerseys, please. The ice is white, the jersey shouldn't be. And
Sean will die on that hill.
Yes.
I don't mind. That being said, I don't mind the white skate jerseys. I think that is an underrated Canucks jersey.
I think it could be just as sharp as what the Flames' current away jerseys look like. Like, if they execute it right, it could be just as sharp and good looking.
Yeah, those jerseys are not good. I'm saying this right now.
Which one? Which ones?
The white ones. The away jerseys for the Flames.
You're biased.
No, I actually like them. I think that they work. I don't hate them. I like the red ones better.
The red ones are fantastic.
But the white ones, I don't mind. I think they bring a certain class. Yeah.
No, they're not classy at all. You don't see them on the ice. The ice is white. The jersey shouldn't be.
Yeah. No,
Or Sean's other hill that he'll die on, the ice should be blue, and then bring back the white jerseys.
Your jersey should not be the same color as your playing surface. There should be no green jerseys in football or soccer, and there should be no white jerseys in hockey.
Not even the fluorescent green on the Seahawks? Wow. No. I'm not on that same boat with you. Normally I back up Sean. Not today.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's a different like shade, so it actually does still stand out, unlike just white on white.
But that's what I was trying to throw out the caveat of what if the ice was like that light tinged blue that you've always campaigned for?
Do it.
Then you'd be okay with white jerseys?
Yeah. My only issue is that it's the same color as the playing surface. That is my issue with white jerseys. It does not look good on TV. Same thing with those stupid Edmonton Elks jerseys with the green on green. Come on. Be better. All right.
But, yeah,
I've tangent this one. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Yeah. So, well, Chris, you also went to the Abbotsford game.
That I did.
Yeah. Maybe like you don't have to talk about the actual game.
Yeah, I'll leave the technical breakdown for the rest of the podcast, guys, but I'm more of the eye test guy, if you will. No, as far as like atmosphere, I relatively enjoyed it. Like, it didn't blow my socks off by any stretch, but the arena itself I thought was nice. The performance that the Abbotsford Canucks gave wasn't that inspired. They got down 3-0 pretty early, and then the rest of the game was kind of a bit of a snooze fest, in my opinion. So, like, it was definitely disappointing, especially after the experience that we had the night before in Rogers Arena. But overall, no, I enjoyed it. And as far as players, I don't recall seeing Klimovich. So I'm wondering if he may have been in a healthy scratch that night. I don't think I ever looked that up after the fact.
Yeah, I think he was, or something like that. But he came back and they got an empty netter in the last game. So it hasn't been a smooth season for him. But yeah, I'm glad that you still got to see a decent got a feel for the Abbotsford and because
it was decently cool too. I think it was potentially was their first home game at 100% capacity in a while. And I want to say it was probably about 75% full. Like, it was decently full. So, like, had they actually got into the game, that crowd would have gotten going. But unfortunately, they never really got close.
Yeah, it's so tough with with everything going on and not being able to have full capacity. And this is their first season too, so it's really hard to gain traction. Those green jerseys are so good. Like, and the Johnny Canuck logo, I love.
I'm a fan of the Johnny on the crest and how they executed most of the jersey. My only thing that I complained about, especially after seeing it in person, the white flap on the bottom, like basically like what covers their ass, if you will, on the jersey. Like, it's that white chunk is way too thick and it just looks awkward. But other than that, I really like those jerseys.
I don't know. I'm not nearly as picky with jerseys as you are, other than the fact, like, just don't wear the same color as your playing surface. But it's, I don't know. Like I said, I love that logo. Like, I'm glad that they were able to bring it back, for at least bring it into the organization for something.
And we went into their team store to get some merch because my buddy Matt wanted to get some inaugural season memorabilia. And I didn't think of it in the moment, but I totally should have been like, hey, do I get a discount for this tattoo? Like, granted, I got it because, because of this logo. But, hey, it works perfectly for Abby now.
Yeah. I also love the reverse V on the arms. For the A.
That's a really nice touch. The fact that they flipped it to be A for Abbotsford.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, because you can't. It's just too bad that you had such a sort of you had such a euphoric experience in Vancouver, and then you got sort of the opposite in Abbotsford there, Chris. It's too bad because I was really hoping to hear a little bit about, like, either Martin or DiPietro or anyone of on that blue line. If there's anyone on that blue line that stood out to you, or whether Klimovich did something or what, but
like Rathbone, I don't think was back in the lineup yet after that hit. I don't recall seeing him that night. What other players? The only other thing I'll touch on was actually getting out there was quite the interesting trek. We actually had to Uber it because, so yeah, definitely not the cheapest Uber I've ever been in. Also, the fact that 3 of us had to sit in the back of a Prius definitely made it an adventure.
Oh, that was fun. But I'm just trying to think here. Yeah, I think you said, yeah, it's just not the easiest place to get out to, but it's just when you're trying to visit. But maybe next time fly into Abbotsford.
Well, if we were like flying out on Saturday, then maybe like find a place to crash Friday night in Abbotsford and then fly out to Abbotsford. That would have made sense, but no, we had plans back in Vancouver the next day, so didn't quite work out.
No. It's good, but yeah, it's great to be back in exciting hockey arenas. Like, I know. I'll get into it now. I went and watched Connor Bedard live yesterday. Him and the Regina Pats were in town in Calgary to play the Hitmen, and he is worth the price of admission. He's such a smooth skater, and I'm always someone who's a little skeptical until I see them in person. I was that way with Johnny Gaudreau. I saw him play one exhibition game. Like, no, this guy's a star. Like, it was just a lot of it is how they avoid contact, especially if they're a little smaller. Because hockey is a physical game. Hockey is a violent game.
How small is Connor?
He's like 5'8" right now, I believe.
Okay.
But I think if he puts on like, he's still only 16. I don't think he's turned 17 yet. If he can put on a couple inches and put on a few more pounds, I think it's not going to be an issue at all. But he's such a smooth skater, and so like you can tell that he's reading the game every time he's on the ice. And he made an absolute, just ridiculous play to get to set up the first goal of the game. Comes in down the boards on his off wing. Stops up at the hash marks. Knows there's players driving to the net. Spins like a sort of a Connor Garland type spin, and just like absolute laser beam of a backhand pass to the center to the slot where his teammate put it in. Like, I was in the corner watching, like up row 20. It was just so I watched it him coming down right down the boards, basically right at me. Watch him stop, curl up, make that just absolute beautiful pass, and just it was as soon as he made that, I was just like, wow. Like, how did you like that? That is, the player has got good hockey vision and hockey sense when they're making plays like that.
Do you agree with a friend of the podcast, Derek, that it's a shame that basically he has no supporting cast to help him out there in Regina, though?
He needs. It is a shame that he doesn't have anyone else to play with. Unfortunately, I was I was talking with a friend of ours in one of the intermissions, going, what would it take to get him out of Regina? Like, in the WHL, how many, like, would it be like two full Bantam drafts of picks to make it happen? Like, they're not giving him up, but man,
I mean, if the Oil Kings want to swap out one of their already star-studded lineup to get him, maybe.
But
but the problem, sorry that I had to step away there for a second, but the problem with that is the financial gain that you have with Connor Bedard playing with the Regina Pats. It's just impossible to give up that money more than anything else, and you're only going to have one more year of him. Like,
that's the thing, is I don't think it'll be a late next season trade if it ever happens.
Yeah.
And honestly, if they're smart and they're not in it, they should. Like, the ransom of picks that they could do to rebuild that team, especially in an aging out a league like the WHL and CHL is. Like, he's literally got less than a year and a half left in the CHL.
Yeah, those leagues you can't build dynasties, so you kind of always have to be constantly evolving and thinking about the future. So you have a very strong point there, Sean.
If they can't figure out put a competitive team around him next season, before that WHL trade deadline, you make a move and you just you just reel in this like ridiculous amount of players and prospects and picks that you're gonna get for him.
Yeah, it's an interesting decision what Regina is going to go through here, because they either have to decide, you've got this guy, you got to go all in, because you've got one more year with him. He's not playing junior hockey after 2023. Or you make the decision to trade him. Really, like, that's basically it. But it's a tough financial decision, though, because you're in a pandemic. You're out so without full crowds. Yes, you had the bubble, but that wasn't a crowd. But I mean, it's also a boon for the WHL, because next year, touch wood, and I'm touching some wood here, but we should be having full league participation, so we should get to see Connor Bedard down the Western Conference, and that's going to sell tickets everywhere. So,
But it's more about the Pats, though, right? In terms of this
Yeah.
discussion, like no matter where he goes, he's gonna get. Could it be the Ice, Winnipeg, could be Edmonton? Red Deer's not too bad this year. Then you've got Everett's really good this year. Kamloops and Portland. Portland would always be in on that. But yeah, it's because you look at them like in the Eastern Conference, they're 10th out of 12. 10th out of 12 teams. Like, and you've got the best, probably the best prospect to come out of the WHL in years, maybe ever. And like it sucked. Like I went and watched. I really haven't followed the WHL too much, but I was like, all right. I went to go watch the game last time he was in town. I missed that absolutely amazing between the legs highlight reel goal that he scored. And now, like, it wasn't as spectacular, but I could still tell, like, this kid is for real. And the fact that he's on a team that is floundering in not even mediocrity, like they're not good. Like the Hitmen are kind of mediocre, and they were the better team for most of that game, except when Bedard was on the ice.
Yeah.
So it's just I can't wait till August when the World Juniors get restarted and get to see him up against Sweden, Finland, and the US and everything there. Just because he'll be the star of that team, because there'll be a lot of players who were on the team that like in December won't be on that team then, because they're going to be focusing on getting into they're going to be focusing on getting to the NHL.
Yeah, you're not. I would imagine this is not a whole different tangent. We'll get into the other part of all of this here in a second, but I imagine we're not seeing a Shane Wright. We're not seeing an Owen Power. We're not seeing those NHL ready prospects or the NHL going to training camp prospects in August. I would doubt that. And I mean, this World Juniors is going to have a number of complications in place in and of itself for a number of different reasons if things are going the way that they are currently going right now. But I would imagine high-level NHL prospects, I don't think you're going to see a Brad Lambert in this tournament. I don't think you're going to see a Shane. I suspect he's going to be drafted, and he'll be drafted pretty high. Shane Wright, honestly, I would doubt.
The only two, honestly, when I look at this roster, Cole Perfetti won't be there. You won't see you won't see Mason McTavish. You won't see and you won't see Owen Power. The rest, I think, are still ready there for the taking. Like Shane Wright, I mean, it depends on who drafts them and what they think of this tournament. That's the big thing there. Like, well, is Shane Wright going to go straight to the NHL?
Chances are yes. I would.
You two are definitely more adept at that sort of stuff than I am, so I'm not too sure if he's gotten that quality or not.
Most first overall picks do, but where we saw what Owen Power not going straight to Buffalo's done. Like I think it's been good for his development.
But he's also a defenseman, so I can understand why when it comes to a D. But typically, like you said, a first overall pick, that's a forward. I honestly can't really think of the last first overall pick that was a forward that didn't go directly to the NHL.
Well, I'm just going to toss another hand grenade into the situation. It depends on who drafts him.
That's kind of where I kind of went that way too. I think it depends on who drafts him and what they feel about the whole tournament too.
And just because if you participate in the tournament doesn't mean that you can't make it to start.
No, it's in August. It's just more
right.
just makes training camp a lot more hectic.
And a risk for injury.
That's it.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, like I look at that and like I would say McTavish won't be there for sure because he's almost a lock to make the Ducks out of camp next year. You look, the one game I got to watch with friend of the show Dylan, this Flame season opener versus Ducks, he didn't look out of place at all there.
Yeah,
the other player I would look at that potentially is Kent Johnson as well. I wonder if he signs and ends up going to an NHL camp next year as well. So, because I look at it and I'm pretty sure just who all sort of like ages out, like because I know Perfetti ages out, so I think he'd just be more focused on making the NHL team there. I wouldn't be surprised. Like I would think that Stankoven and Genther still play. I would think that Jake Neighbors might be someone who doesn't go.
That's St. Louis.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if Ridley Gregg still stays. I think he's low enough down on Ottawa's. Like I don't think he's necessarily going to be looking at that. Brojol will stay. Desnoyers will stay. Maverick Bork will stay. Sordorf will stay. Cooley will stay. Like, and that whole blue line too. Like I said, I think the only one you would potentially lose is Owen Power. But at least up front, like honestly, then you still have a 1-2 punch up the middle of Wright and Bedard for that team,
right?
Even if you lose McTavish.
Yeah, it's still like that. Let's not get us wrong. It's still a good team. It just will probably be some different players.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that transitions us. Did you get the Pig and Duke ad in or?
No, I'll do it right now though.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, we partner up with the Pig and Duke. The Pig and Duke pubs here in Calgary and part of their Pig and Puck Club. They've got 2 locations where you can join the Pig and Puck Club, the downtown location at 503 4th Ave Southwest and the neighborhood pub at 1312 12th Ave Southwest. Members of the Pig and Puck Club can get game day specials when they go and watch Canucks and Flames games at either location. Members are also able to enter a draw for tickets to the April 23rd game at the Saddle Dome between the Flames and Canucks. And I know Chris and I are hoping that it goes just as well as the last Flames and Canucks game. Not like the one that we went to in Calgary.
Yeah, not the last one you and I attended together, but the one I just was at. Yes.
Yeah. At the Pig and Duke, you can get their house beers, the Pub Life beers, which are you can get a lager and a copper beer. Both are very good. If you're looking for something like your standard sort of arena beer, your dome foam, if you must. The lager is really good, and the copper beer is a nice sort of. Has a little more sweetness to it, a little more maltiness to it. It's really nice. And then us as the Shifts and Pucks podcast, we also have 2 tickets to give away to that April 23rd game as part of the Pig and Puck Club. And you can enter to win one of those 2 tickets by retweeting any of the episodes or pod clips on Twitter or DMing us the word of the week on Twitter or Facebook. Any retweet will gain you 1 entry, and a DM of the word of the week will gain you 3 entries. And we've talked about making sure that we actually figure out a word of the week before I actually start doing the read, but we didn't do it again this week. So I'm going to make sure that I'm going to make Chris come up with it off the top of his head.
I actually just posted it into our private chat. Whiplash.
Whiplash. All right. after everything that's happened with the Canucks this week, and even with some of the Flame stuff that's happened, whiplash. The word of the week is whiplash. And we would like to thank Joe and Steven and everyone at the Pig and Duke for supporting the podcast, and we would like to encourage everyone to go and support them as they celebrate their 10th anniversary. I'm still blown away by that because
has it been 10 years already?
For the neighborhood pup on 12th Ave, it has been 10 years, and I'm still blown away. But on the 11th, on the Friday, you can go to the 4th location. They'll be celebrating there, as well as on March 12th at the neighborhood pup on 12th Ave. You can go celebrate there. I will be there. Chris will be there. Devin will be there, and it'll be a great time.
There we go. So keep an eye out for that. The word of the week and is whiplash, and keep an eye out for our news pod clips, news reads. We do our news packs Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. And so keep an eye out for that. We do 10-minute clips on the weekends as well to kind of just set that up. Also, and I didn't mention this, we're on the Area 51 network as well. I think I forgot that all of the distraction at the beginning. So you can catch us there as well. So
forming new habits.
I was just in the midst of kind of bit of a distraction.
We'll get there.
So now we get to the tough part of this, where hockey meets real life. And with this week, with what's happened with Russia and Ukraine, the sports community has responded, some better than others. The World Rugby Union took a pretty strong stance. FIFA took a stance and then had to take another stance. But the IIHF did suspend officially Russia and Belarus from international play. They have removed the 2023 World Juniors, which is in St. Petersburg. No determination of where that is going to be played. There has been calls right now from Dominic Hasek, specifically about players from Russia being suspended, the contracts being suspended. But I guess maybe and then Wayne Gretzky talked this week about on the Stadium Series game and saying that this had to be done. I think there's a lot here, but I think just from the IIHF situation here, for a number of different reasons, this was the right decision. I think just from a political thing, I think this was, you want to take this stand. And also, I think for the safety of anyone that is going to play, I do play-by-play for 15, 16, 17-year-olds. I cover junior hockey. But I'm not a hockey parent, but if I was a hockey parent and I was saying, hey, let's go to St. Petersburg, Russia for the World Juniors, have to be honest with you, be very hesitant to send my kid over to St. Petersburg, Russia, or over there at this particular point in time. So for a safety reason, I think this is the next logical thing to do. But I think just right now, I think the right things are being done, but I think that we haven't seen the full impact of this yet.
And for the most part, I'm totally on board with all the sanctions against Russia for doing this. The only thing where I guess I kind of have a little bit of a question mark is, how do you punish Russia and specifically the government without directly attacking the people? Because I'm not sure how many people have been seeing on the news, but the amount of Russians protesting this invasion. So I feel for the Russian people, on an individual level in that regard, if they are not supportive of this. So for me, Hasek's point is a little too strong. And I don't think I agree with that. But as far as taking it out of Russia for the World Juniors, taking them out of the international play, I support that. It's more so I start to worry about the individuals in that case.
It's bigger than an individual at this point, though. That's where I'm at. And you look at, and I'm an F1 fan, and there's calls for Nikita Mazepin's license to be revoked so that he wouldn't be able to race in F1. I think the way I look at it, and I agree with everything that's been done up to this point, other than the piss poor, like nothing going on first attempt by FIFA, the fact that they actually nutted up and we were able to actually do something that actually made sense, worked for me. But unfortunately, you have to make these strong stances at this point. I know we've had these conversations about Russia and everything that's going on with their doping and steroids and illegal enhancing drugs that they've done in the Olympics, right? And you don't but at some point you have to draw a line, and when you're this is far beyond when you should be drawing the line, in my opinion. When it comes to everything with that, I would feel for the players who would be able to potentially play hockey or any sport at a professional level if all these go that way. But I think it's just for me, when I look at it right now, and this could change in 2 hours and 4 hours, 8 hours, 24 hours, 36. But right now, for me, you let them continue to sort of just play in their professional leagues because it's a personal thing, and if they're not in Russia, let's let them be. But you take away every national pride potentiality from them. They cannot represent that country. They cannot fly that flag if they're going out there and anything like that. And so if you're competing in a world championship, no. If you're just competing in a professional league where you win the Stanley Cup or the English Premier League trophy or anything like that,
F1.
I'm still struggling with F1 because they still call it the World Championship, and that's where I trust me. I'm like, but like for the F1 fans, I honestly think that they need to get rid of Mazepin anyways. He's been an absolute PR nightmare for the Haas F1 team before all this. Go look it up. Like it trigger warning a little bit, but go look it up if you're interested. He's been an absolute pain in the ass for them. But it's just, that's kind of the where I'm at right now. I'm like, unless they're coming out and like fully supporting the what's going on, let them continue to make their money and play sports and all that. The other thing with Mazepin is his dad is one of the Russian oligarchs that's within the Putin inner circle.
And that's also where I'm kind of struggling with Ovi as well, because he's actually pretty closely tied to Putin as well.
That's part of it too. And
the human side of it that I feel torn, at least with Ovi specifically, is like he can't have like a super strong anti-Putin stance publicly because he's afraid of what could potentially happen to his family that are all back home. So that's like on a human level, I'm torn there, and maybe I didn't explain myself properly earlier on, but like when you were talking about like if they're professionals in a professional league, that's more so what I was talking about, where I thought Halak took it a little bit too far. Like I don't think like Podkolzin shouldn't be able to play in the NHL because he's Russian during this incident. Mm-hmm. I think as long as they're playing in a professional league and it's not wearing their country's flag on their jersey, then I'm in agreement with Sean as far as all the moves that have been made thus far make sense to me.
The one thing that Wayne Gretzky said that I think needs to be repeated, and one thing that I think is being forgotten here, though, is one of the challenges with the World Juniors and I think the IIHF made the right move here on that part, is Edmonton has a very strong Ukrainian community, and in northern Alberta, for those that have not been to the northern part of Alberta, is a very strong Ukrainian community. Canada is a very strong Ukrainian community. I think it's 2 million, I believe. That's somewhere in there. So you had to, like, I mean, as much as we are talking about it, and it's obvious because we're seeing a lot of Russian athletes, and I think that, I'm not going to sit here and pick everyone's political brain on which side they're on. I don't think that that's necessarily fair to the athlete, but it's also the struggle here is while we're debating whether Russian athletes should play or not play, Ukrainian lives are at stake here. And there are Ukrainian athletes out here. There was a tweet going out with a soccer player. I want to say his name is Yaremchuk. That got the captain. He got the captain. I mean, there are Ukrainian athletes here that are being impacted, and nobody's asking how they're feeling about this. And that's the other part of the problem with this is this is, we want the same. I think everybody is on the same boat here that this has to stop, and and I think that there's a fair debate in terms of what we do with the Russian athletes here. The adults, the professionals, and the amateurs. But we're not really talking a lot about what is happening for the Ukrainian athletes. And this is where this also gets really difficult here is, how are they doing emotionally? And I don't think there is a huge Ukrainian NHL contingent or a lot of Ukrainian Ukrainian professional athletes that we can look to, but there are athletes out there. And this is, what we do for the Russian athlete does impact the Ukrainian athlete and the Ukrainian community as well. And that's where has to be a delicate balance. And I mean, I think the problem here is we can get too political on this in the sense that we're formerly the hockey podcast and we're here to talk about hockey, and we don't want to necessarily get too political about this, but the stands and the decisions that sports organizations, teams organizations have to make here have to think of both, not just one.
Yeah. So you brought up Ukrainian NHLers. The only two that I could find when I Googled it, Ruslan Fedotenko and Alexei Ponikarovsky.
So no one current, but
yeah, no one current.
The other thing too is that, as he said, they got rid of Russia and Belarus from any IIHF's tournaments. The team that was supposed to be promoted to the to the top division for World Juniors was Belarus. So if they are going to have a full 10-team tournament in August, they're going to have to. Latvia was the team that came second in that lower division. So we're likely seeing if they go full 10 teams, we're likely seeing the return of the Latvians, which is in a lighter tone, fucking awesome, because Latvians love their hockey and they're full of energy.
Yeah, Latvia is awesome. The only, I guess, somewhat downside is how old is Danila Klimovich? Because he's Belarusian, isn't he?
Right. There's another complication right in Canucks land.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And let me throw another complication into this. Matvei Michkov in the 2023 draft.
What happens with that? Because we go back to the late 80s, early 90s, where you had players defecting and you had players being taken. We've talked about the Russian effect on players for even up until now too, because like the KHL wants to keep their players. Now, what happens? I think it all comes down to where things are at come draft time, for sure. At this point, because not that like Michkov is in the Bedard draft in 2023. So how long does this go on will really affect him, where he's at and what happens with him. But there's still going to be good Russian Russian-based players and Russian nationality players that are going to be probably pushed. What happens with this 2022 draft more is an even bigger question for me.
Well, there's Pavel Michkinov, but he's playing in the CHL right now. So he's
and there's
here.
talk that the CHL will be omitting any Russian or Belarusian players going into the next import draft.
Yeah, let's read that tweet from Jeff Merrick. Here, the Canadian Hockey League will hold an executive call on Wednesday to discuss the rest of the situation. There's some speculation that CHL may ban Russian and Belarusian players from the import draft, but I'm told nothing has been decided yet. So that's from Jeff Merrick, and that was earlier. That was a couple of hours ago. So that becomes an issue. And now the other issue here is there are North American players currently playing in Russia. And as of yet, we don't know. We haven't heard any of them that are coming back to North America.
Actually, there is one. I put it in our group chat earlier in the day. Saravelli retweeted a cap-friendly tweet. I'll read it here. Panthers have signed UFA Petteri Lindbom on an NHL contract. He had been playing for Jokerit in the KHL, but since Jokerit has totally omitted themselves from the KHL playoffs because their arena is Russian-owned, I think he's probably going to be the first of at least a few players that try and come overseas or come from overseas and come back to North America.
Because there's the Jokerit as well as Dynamo
Riga. Sorry, yes, you're right.
From Latvia. Both those teams were part of the KHL, and they've now said no. So, but yeah, they've got I'm looking up Sportsnet's top 32 February rankings. There is Danila Yurov at number 7 and Ivan Miroshnichenko at 9 are both playing in Russia. And but even then, even the player that I think you were talking about, Pavel Mintyukov, he's playing for the Saginaw Spirit, but what does that actually do, right? It's going to be, because the other thing is and unfortunately, it's just the way we are as a species, the human beings as a species, is we're very when we get scared, the fight or flight kicks in, and there's a lot of fight, especially over when you don't have to take consequences, that kicks in.
Especially in wartime, the whole pointing at other situation. Yeah.
Wartime, whether it's war against another country or whatever, or war against a pandemic.
Whatever that other takes form in.
There are people who decide that it's up to them to yell and scream at people who are part of a region in the world that has been part of that. So Dan Milstein, who is a prominent agent who represents a lot of players from Eastern Europe and Russia, has said that his clients have gotten threats, and they are working with trying to make sure that they're staying safe. And it sucks because we don't know how those players are connected at all, or if they're connected at all. So just to everyone who's watching this and listening to this, keep your heads on straight and just understand that this is a very complex situation, and don't try not to overreact. I know it's tough in these situations. It's a very tough time. Kev, you said you're of Ukrainian descent, and I've got, and as you said, it's a very big Ukrainian community
diaspora
up in the Edmonton area, and I have friends in that community. I have friends who I've grown up with. They're amazing people, great people who I would almost call family at time for a bit, and my heart breaks for them because this is just horrible, and it's just I don't know what else to say, unfortunately, and I know there's probably other things to say. I'm just gonna try and I know I'm a very opinionated person at times, but it's all in good fun at time for the most part. Like we were talking about white jerseys earlier, pales in comparison to this.
Mm-hmm.
And in a situation like this, I think it's better to try and make sure you say the right thing and say and take your time as opposed to spouting off
just for the sake of saying something.
Just for the sake of saying something. And I don't know if I'm saying the right thing right now, but I'm trying.
Well, and again, I don't think it's let's also say it's not appropriate to be threatening people in any circumstances. Death threats are not okay. And I understand it gets very emotional when we get into these situations like this. And it kind of hits close to home with a lot of people here within the North American community. It hits close to home, but it doesn't you don't need to see the death threats. I think that there's just, to me, it's good that the sports community is standing in to having these sanctions. And it's a matter of what goes on here has to be dealt with intelligently and unfortunately intelligently and thoughtfully and not politically. And I think that that's where we're going to get into the nuance here, unfortunately, going forward, is are these sports organizations, including the IIHF, and by the way, the NHL has suspended their relationships with Russian business partners and Russian digital and social media sites today. Making the right decision because it is the absolute right decision and best for everyone, as opposed to making the political decision, is what's going to be key going forward. And finding a way to end this, whatever this mess is in the Ukraine.
One final thing, because I feel like we're kind of wrapping up on this. I heard on the Merrick Show News, I don't want to use the word interesting, but I guess thought-provoking. Apparently, the KHL had decided prior to the Olympics that they were going to end their regular season early and go straight to the playoffs. And Merrick somewhat speculated on his radio show recently, maybe they had an idea that this was coming and they basically wanted to go to playoffs to try and maximize revenue. Who knows what their motivation was, but maybe they had an idea that this was coming down the pipeline. Who knows?
No, they probably did. I mean, I think we all knew something was coming. It was in the news. We had other things on our mind, maybe.
As well as just hoping against hope that it wasn't going to happen, even if it seemed likely.
I think it was one of those things where, Putin does like hockey, and he has a stake in one of the KHL teams.
So Moscow, I believe.
Yeah, I believe so. So it is something that he is, and so I wouldn't be surprised, especially the way and again, we're wading into political territory here, and that's not what I want to do. But the way the Russian oligarchy influences work, like they had to know. So, but at this point, I just want to end it on this. I want this ended as quickly as possible, as peacefully as possible, and so that we continue to have a Ukraine, and we can help them rebuild
just help save as many lives as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all agree, but I also, as much as we don't want to get into political here, we also can't ignore it. And I think that's the responsible thing, is at least discussing it, bringing us to the forefront and not putting our heads in the sand and just, well, we're just going to talk hockey today and draw our graphs or whatever, right? I don't think that because there is a human side to this, and there's a lot more on this that I think we can that will happen. We'll keep abreast of it and absolutely hope for the absolute best and hope it ends soon.
Yeah.
And with that, we will leave it here. Is there anything else? I think we should leave it here. I don't feel we should bring anything. Yeah. Let's leave it here. How do we follow everyone?
I am Bearded Canucks 03 on Twitter.
I'm at Schneid's on most social media.
Tyler, who does exist, TNOBLE. He's away, but he will be back. Devin promises he'll be back Wednesday. Gordhouse09 on Twitter. I'm KEVOLE. Shifts and Pucks on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, as well as find us as well on the Area 51 Sports Network. And thanks, everyone. Be safe out there. Be kind to each other. And we'll talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.